Hello, and welcome to Nowland Law's Orange County Matters. Nowland Law is a boutique business litigation law firm that assists business owners, executives, and investors in contract, labor, construction, and real estate disputes within the state of California. In looking at professionals that offer excellent value adjacent to our capabilities, I wanted to introduce you to Mr. Richard Wayland of Imagination Brokerage. Richard, hello.
Hey, buddy. Thank you so much for the nice intro. Wow.
Yeah. So, speaking of intros, if you can go ahead and give our visitors a quick introduction about your brokerage.
Yes, of course. So my name is Richard Whalen, owner and broker of the Imagination Brokerage. We're a boutique real estate investing and brokerage company in Orange County, although we work all over Southern California and also handle investing out of state as well. I started investing in Ohio about 5 years ago, and we've since started up a real estate syndication where we're now actively raising money to invest over in the Cleveland area. And overall, I try to take as much of the investment knowledge as I've gathered over the past, I've been in the industry for about 10 or 11 years now. I try to gather all of that investment knowledge and apply it to everyday real estate decisions. I really like to help people when whether they're, buying a personal residence or, leasing their first office or any of that stuff. You know, your everyday real estate decisions can add up to huge, huge profits and benefits and wealth in the long term. So why not make the most of every single real estate decision?
Great. So speaking of out-of-state investments, one of the topics our viewers are interested in is real estate investments that are out of state. So could you tell us a little bit about what investors should be thinking about in the sense of what it looks like when an out-of-state real estate investment deal goes right, and
Sure.
unfortunately, sometimes what it looks like when they go wrong?
Right. Absolutely. Well, my first piece of advice might be the most, I guess, unusual or like it's a piece of advice I don't see a lot. And that is, try to not pay such close attention to the black and white and start with where your network is and where your level of kind of comfort and safety is. What I mean by that is basically a lot of the kind of when you're just starting out, the deals where people go wrong are the ones where the profit potential looks very obvious or apparent or whatever, like everyone's talking about it. Oh, like this is on the top 10 lists of every single thing, but you don't know anybody there. You've never even been there yourself. You don't know anything about the real estate in that region. And so, you get all caught up in the high profit promises and then realize that in the real world, this is a very people and relationship oriented industry. And if you don't already have an agent that you trust, a contractor that you trust, a property manager that you trust, any one of those parties can very quickly essentially take a lot of money away from you. And before you know it, you're out a substantial amount of money. If I had to kind of give it a rough estimate, I'd say that anytime you go into a new market, you probably have, depending on the cost of the market, anywhere between $20,000 to $60,000 worth of mistakes you're going to make before you really start to make any money out there. And so, that leads to kind of advice part two, which is not only do you try to, find people that have the talent and all that you trust, that that you can work with, but also, really be ready to keep pursuing even after it initially seems hard, right? Like one issue with a bad contractor or one thing, one experience with a bad, property manager, it doesn't mean that this whole region sucks. It doesn't mean that all of real estate investing sucks. That's just something I hear a lot, right? People being like, "Hey, I had this bad experience," or even something like my grandma had a bad experience with rental properties in Hawaii 40 years ago, so I never invest in any real estate today, right? Like that's a little bit of extreme, but I've honestly heard stuff like that, And one of the great pieces of advice that I got early on is basically you have to persist. You have to assume that the first one isn't going to go so well, but you got to keep trying and trying and trying and trying and trying again. And by the time you're at number 3, number 4, you're going to start making a lot of money. By the time you're at number 10, then you're building generational wealth for your kids and your grandkids. So, you just got to persist. You got to, keep trying what works or doesn't work, and, tossing out the things that don't, and keep going.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is that there's a learning curve, and in something like real estate investing, that learning curve is just going to be expensive. One of the issues that we're often telling clients to help with the cost of that learning curve is due diligence.
Yeah.
We've seen deals, like you said, these different mistakes can cost very quickly large sums of money. We've
Yeah.
seen issues with titles and surveys, liens, encumbrances, easements. Even if there's an investment deal involving tenants, where all of a sudden there's a whole slew of tenant issues that can come up, with uninhabitable living after you've acquired the property,
Yeah.
with the requirements for the lease, getting them out. So tell me a little bit about when you've worked with contractors, when you're looking at a deal. Obviously you want to partner with a good attorney that can help you
Right.
do the due diligence, but just when you, as a person who's helping real estate investors, as a brokerage, what kind of due diligence are you recommending or even potentially helping with for your clients?
Sure, sure, sure. Well, I mean, it's a very simple question with a very. I'll start maybe with a broad answer and then kind of work my way back towards like one specific example, just because there's so many different ways that that due diligence can occur depending on the type of transaction. And there's also so many protections, so many different ways that you can mitigate that risk. So that's those are like the two biggest things. It's like you want to think about first, okay, you want to have a very specific strategy for how you can do your due diligence, and then you also have to have a very specific, like in writing, kind of contractual strategy for how you're going to build in those contingencies in case something goes wrong. So the first thing I'm always thinking about that maybe someone with less commercial real estate experience wouldn't really know to do, because a lot of these people they come into it from residential and they feel like they understand real estate really well, and that's great. Like in order to be truly successful at this, you or someone you're very close with needs to have that very like tangible, like on the ground, like how do you fix houses, how do you pick a good one, how do you make it appealing and cool and stylish for tenants, like that sort of thing. Like there's all this real estate knowledge that's sort of foundational, right? But then the next level above that is really understanding contracts and really understanding all the legal ramifications, all the things that can go wrong, and the financial liabilities, and all that can happen. And so, and again, if you don't have that, if you don't possess that knowledge yourself, you need someone that does, either a very experienced commercial real estate broker, or an attorney, or some other trusted individual who can answer those types of questions for you. Then, so the next phase is working into the deal your due diligence contingencies. This is kind of handled differently in residential or commercial, but in any which case, whether it's sale or lease or whatever, a contingency is basically a specific line of language that says, we are going to look up like XYZ facts about this, right? Like we're going to look up the zoning to make sure that it is can be the type of business that we want to do here. We want to, in the case of like residential rentals and all that, we need to double check to make sure that that additional bedroom and bathroom was correctly permitted. That's something that we just did last week. We had to write a deal where we were like, hey, listen, looking at this, we can tell from this house that the little like extra master suite in the back was an add-on. As part of the contingency of our sale, we need to have time to be able to go to the city, confirm that that was legally installed. Because otherwise, something that I actually have seen happen is someone buys a house and then only finds out when they try to do a simple upgrade to the house. Like maybe they are like, oh, well, hey, I want to build another bedroom, or I want to build an ADU, or like something like that. The city comes, and the first time they inspect it, they go, hey, this none of this is supposed to be here. And in fact, and they look under this and they look under that, they go, this isn't up to code at all. This is
So
dangerous.
they were trying to improve one
you
aspect
know,
of it, and then all of a sudden there was all these other issues that the inspectors and now all of a
Exactly.
sudden they're in a world of hurt.
I've even seen situations, yeah, where not only did they not get to do the improvement they wanted to do, but they also had to, out of their own pocket, pay to demolish an existing bonus suite that was on the house.
That's painful.
Yeah, exactly, and fix it all back up. So now they have a smaller house, no bonus improvements, and
They
a
had to
big
pay for
hole in
that.
their wall or whatever. They had to pay for all of that. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So these are the sorts of things that when you're working with just another smiling face and a handshake, they're not necessarily going to protect you from these big things. Because, by the way, when something happens like this, you basically, it's if the other side's agent was doing their job, there's language in the purchase contract that says, hey, we never verified this extra bedroom and bathroom. We never did XYZ. There's no, you have to do your own due diligence. That's like written into every description in every contract, such that, the whole point of it is to make sure that if that happens to you, you have no recourse. You can't go and sue the seller for that. You just eat that, right? So
Now,
that's
I
why,
want to
yeah,
interject here really quick because it can get sticky when there have been specific warranties and representations that something was permitted. Let's say that you
sure,
even have it in writing in an email exchange. So, on
sure.
one hand, you have the contract where these disclosures are made that it's up to the purchaser to do their due diligence. On the other
Yeah.
hand, you might have very specific warranties where a certain representation was made in writing. So then it
Oh,
becomes
yeah.
a legal question of, well, okay, now do I work with a business attorney in California, or do I have to
Oh,
work with
yeah.
an attorney outside of in that state where the investment is?
Sure.
And it can be complicated. You should always start with the attorney in state that you're working with, so that they can look at how the deal's structured. As you've mentioned, Mr. Whalen, there are
Sorry,
other.
to be clear, you should always start with a lawyer in your home state, or start with a lawyer in the state of the project that you're doing.
If you've been working with an attorney in your home state that
Yeah.
you have structured the deal with, that they've taken care of other issues, such as how to structure the deal with other investors and that sort of
Yeah.
thing, they are your hub, your starting point of who to go to. Now, obviously, at a certain point, when it comes to what a real estate agent or brokerage in another state, their requirements are, then you're going to need a local attorney. And
Mm,
your in-state attorney is a great starting point for referrals to the appropriate attorney in the out-of-state. Obviously,
mm,
working with your real estate brokerage is another great area for referrals, but you always
sure.
want to make sure that you're having that legal protection where you've worked with your attorney for the deal.
Sure.
They guided that process for the representations, and they should have a good launching off point on how to handle something like that.
Sure. Okay. All right. No, that makes a
So
lot of sense.
Mr. Whalen, go ahead and tell me just anything that you'd want to leave as a departing message for these viewers who are looking at out-of-state deals. They're currently maybe living in California or based out of California, but they're
Yeah.
interested in out-of-state deals. What's one parting message you'd like to give them?
Oh, just that, you know what? The more you spread yourself geographically in terms of real estate, honestly, the better, the more nimble you become. That, here in California, there's a lot of, sensibility in like buying and holding long term because we just appreciate so well. But I know there's a lot of people here who have either they already own a property, but they've built up a ton of equity in it, but they feel like they can't sell it or do anything with that without messing up their super low interest rate and all that. That's something I hear a lot. There's people who are in the opposite situation. They don't own a home. They've been saving money forever, and they just still can't afford to buy in Southern California. And one of the reasons why I started looking out of state in the first place is because so many of my peers, so many millennials, are in either of those camps. They're either lucky enough to kind of get a house early on, and now they feel stuck in their house. And then there's also people who saved up a bunch of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and there's nothing they can do with it. Well, out of state investing is the solution to both of those problems. And it really gives you this sense of, hey, I'm still playing the game. It's not in my own backyard, but I'm still in it. And whether the market goes up, I'm still going to have something that's going to go up in value. If the market goes down, let me tell you, residential rentals, rent doesn't go down. You know what I mean? Like rent, stays pretty solid, tiny little fluctuations, it stays pretty solid. So, whether I know that the economic situation is a little uncertain right now. And let me just tell you, where I'm investing in Cleveland, I feel very assured that whichever direction the market goes, we're going to be okay because we're going to be making a really steady cash flow off of our investments that we can then redirect, in a way that is appropriate to whatever the market situation is going to be like next year. So, I really appreciate and enjoy, kind of like the weird little special things that make Ohio such a great place to invest. And if you're interested in learning more, let me know. I'm going to be posting this on my socials, but my name is Richard Whalen with the Imagination Brokerage. You can find me at imaginationbroker.com.
Great. Thank you for your time.